We met the newest members of the Houston Rockets with an introductory press conference yesterday. You saw Amen Thompson, 4th overall pick, thought to be the most athletic athlete ever. Yes, that was actually said. And then on top of that, Cam Whitmore as well. So a player from a league that's not real and a player from Villanova who fell in the draft. Very curious to see how those two guys will do, but more curious as to what Ime Udoka is going to do with them. And much like with D'Amico Ryans when he first took over with the Houston Texans, Udoka is checking all of the right boxes at these press conferences. With this line in particular, because I got the impression that with Steven Silas in charge, the young players just expected that they would be granted unlimited patience. And that was one of my big issues with the Rockets last year. It just felt like all the young players knew, well, I'm going to be here. There's not really any pressure for me to turn things around. And that can be a problem because I think it was a bit of a problem in Philadelphia for early in his career, Joel Embiid, before he started taking things a little bit more seriously. And on top of that, Ben Simmons, who I'm not sure ever came to love basketball because I think he learned he can just do whatever he wants. Ime Udoka said, nothing is handed out anymore. Is this a shot at Steven Silas? I'm not sure. I just like hearing the new head coach of the Houston Rockets.
Nothing is handed out anymore, as well as myself and the new staff coming in. We've kind of stressed that to the guys. And so for us, it's just adding the right pieces, raising the whole level of the organization. I think those veterans will help, but we love the young, talented guys, and it's a balance. It might not be the starter or the finisher. It's how can we balance the lineups out with the guys we add, and some guys will play different roles than they have been, but I think we have high character guys that are all used to winning and trying to get on that level, and so they'll do what they have to do to sacrifice for the team, but it is phase 2, and we're looking forward to taking a big step.
They have a lot of young talent. Are they going to be able to make anything of it? I don't know. I think 5 of the top players they've drafted over the last couple of years are 21 or under. I mean, that's pretty nuts. Is it going to turn into something? You would hope that Ime Udoka is going to be able to make it happen with players who aren't established in the league. It'll probably be a little bit easier, in fact. And it's good to hear from Udoka in this press conference. They were talking about veteran possibilities that they might bring in earlier in that clip. It was a long answer that he gave. We just played the best part of it, where he said, we're looking for people that are mature, who are responsible. I am curious, and maybe you have a thought on this, Sean, as to what that means next, because I do feel like even though the Rockets are drafting a lot of young players and clearly look like they're still going through a rebuild, the next step is going to be really interesting, because I think that is where Ime Udoka is going to show a lot of these young players, and also Rafael Stone for his part, that, you better figure it out. Because there will be players on this roster that you are competing with for playing time, and those guys are unlikely to just give you that playing time.
Yeah. He absolutely hit it on the head. And again, I think it might have been a different answer where he was talking about the level of competition on this team, like in training camp, 4 minutes is going to go up. I think this is actually right before he said nothing's going to be handed out, which is perfect because, yes, they not only do they have, I think they have 5 first-round picks the last 3 years that are all under 21. They have, I think, 9 guys that are on their rookie deals still.
Yeah.
That's including, some second-rounders and stuff. And just the idea that, they're also going to bring in veterans. It leads you to think, so how is this going to work? How are you going to play all these guys? And Ime Udoka hit it on the head of, minutes aren't going to be handed out. You're going to have to earn your minutes. You're going to have to play fundamental basketball. You're going to have to communicate on defense, lock in on defense. You're going to have to work to get these minutes. You're not just going to get 35 minutes, 25 minutes a game just because you were a first round pick last year. Those days are over. You're going to have to compete with even if it's a Dylan Brooks, a Bruce Brown, a like real NBA players that have been a part of actual winning recently. Of you're gonna have to compete with those guys to play.
That's what pisses me off about with Steven Silas. And it's not to say that Silas didn't hold players out for random reasons. Everyone was confused as to why Alperen Şengün did not play as much as he should have last year. That was weird.
Yeah, there's no like rhyme or reason to that.
But the other guys got to keep on playing, and I think some of them went through some rather low stretches. I would specifically point to Jalen Green. I think last year was a disappointment. I thought we were going to see a much bigger jump from year 1 to year 2 than we did, especially with the way that he finished off his first season. And I feel like putting some pressure on him more than anybody else on this roster is big. They need to see a bigger improvement. And I'm not saying he still can't continue to improve, but I also think there's a lot of people that follow this team, specifically the young online fanboys. I know Vator came on last week. We got to have him on again. I like that at the very least he owns that he's a homer. But some of them are looking at the young players they have and acting like they're all going to turn into something special. Don't forget, they missed out in not having one of the top 3 picks in this year's draft. Not just talking about missing out on Wemby, missing out on Brandon Miller, no matter how crazy his takes might be and his actions off the court might be. And on top of that, Scoot Henderson, like they missed out. Thompson might be really good someday, but it's definitely a lot of finish that he needs. He's not a good shooter. So there's a lot of things that need to get sorted out. But for the young players that are here already, this is a big time moment for them. Because these players that have been brought in, like this is where we're starting to enter into, these might be replacements territory as opposed to just adding to a massive core of young players. We're talking 9 young players. They can't all play. I mean, how many teams play 9 players a game?
Yeah, exactly. And then you're throwing in just the positional crunch, or not. It's not really a crunch that's happening yet, but there will be a crunch that happens. I'm gonna start with him because he's the funniest name. Deshaun Nix, Ty Washington,
Yep.
Kevin Porter Jr.,
Yeah.
Amen Thompson, and then it's presumed that they're gonna bring in at least one free agent point guard. All those guys are point guards. Maybe Kevin Porter Jr. moves more to a shooting guard. But
what does that do with Jalen Green?
Yeah, exactly. And that's still a guy that you just drafted number 4 and a first-round pick from last year and a guy you're probably going to pay $25 to $35 million this year that are all running point guard. That's bad news for Deshaun Nix, for Josh Christopher, for Ty Washington. Like, these guys, there's going to be a little bit of a culling period of, hey, you're going to have to produce or else you're going to have to play on a different team.
Bad news for those players, but it's good as a whole for the Rockets.
It's good for the Rockets. It's bad for those guys specifically.
I'll go further. It's great. This is the competition creating something.
This is what all the picks are for. This
Right.
is what the idea of just throwing darts at first round talents. It's for once you get enough of them, you can kind of figure out the real from the fake.
And Udoka running this as opposed to Silas makes so much more sense. So at the end of the day, it worked out for Stone. Like, he got this guy. He has a ton of young players. And yeah, they didn't get the number 1 overall pick. They're not getting Victor Wembanyama, but there's a lot here. Udoka also said that the Rockets aren't that far off and made some comparisons to that Boston Celtics team that he coached, which not too long ago was also a very young team.
It's not far off. The difference, 2-3 years is a difference between the players in Boston and these guys here. But they, those 2-3 years of experience is important. And so I can kind of draw in on all my situations as a player and a coach. Been in a lot. And one thing I have never done is not made the playoffs. And so we want to take that step here as well. Got a lot of talent and guys that are hungry to get to that next level. So, like I said, I've been in a lot of different situations. I can nurture them, been in their shoes, and look forward to adding pieces that'll help with that as well.
The biggest question I have for this coming year in a city that is very basketball casual, it's okay to admit it. It is. They're not good. Haven't been good for a hot minute. You have experienced championships. It was a long time ago, but I don't think that this city is like in love with the Houston Rockets in a way that they were obviously in the 1990s when Hakeem Olajuwon was here and those other players were here. Will this team actually be fun to watch? I don't know. I feel like if you like to watch glimpses of things, yes, but I'm wondering how messy the product's going to be on the court. And again, it's good big picture if it is a little bit messy. Guys are going to have to learn by trial and error. But I don't think this team is going to be markedly more watchable for the first couple of months of this season. In fact, it might be an absolute effing disaster. I still really, I don't know who the point guard really is, you know? Like, it's not like they have checked boxes off. It's just they added more pieces and iron sharpens iron.
Well, that I think some of that will just happen the next 7 days when free agency starts on Friday. Probably by the 4th, we'll have a stronger idea of how they're spending the $60 million in cap space. That there will be guys, and if you're paying the guys that they're gonna sign, they're gonna be the starters. So
Fred VanVleet is the one that I think makes the most sense.
Yeah, he probably makes the most sense, and he's also at an age where he fits a little bit better. He's 29, a little bit an undersized point guard, but for the time being, they just need a point guard, and then hopefully in year 2 or 3 of that deal, Amen Thompson starts developing into the starting point guard, and it can. There's a way that there's a smooth handoff with that, and Amen Thompson's size. Obviously, you can put him next to a 6-foot point guard because Amen Thompson's 6'7".
Big guy.
Yeah, so there is some moves left to be made, but I do think it will be more watchable in the fact that the last few years have been completely unwatchable because of the growing pains of this young team, but also there's no like stewardship whatsoever. There's no consequences for their act. At least now, when someone messes up, you know that Ime Udoka and his staff will be there to be like, hey, you bleep that up.
And it's not Rafael Stone who maybe feels the need to step in. And there are moments now where I do wonder, again, I still think Stone's not qualified. But, okay, he's been here long enough. You have to accept that the guy's here. Was some of his hands-on nature because of the fact that Silas seemed like such a pushover? I don't know. It might have been.
Yeah, there's just a void that someone had to fill.
Exactly.